අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 25th of April 2023. Revelations. Minister of Justice Vijaydas Rajapaksa reveals details of bribery regarding Express Pearl in Parliament today. More funds. Cabinet green lights. Cabinet gives green light to proceed with securing over $500 million of loan from World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. Appeals heard. President instructs Minister of Public Security Derana English to hand over remaining volumes of Easter PCOI to Catholic Bishops' Conference of Sri Lanka. His Excellency Bishop Harold Anthony. President Ranil Wickremesinghe vows to not allow anyone to interfere with the education system. Says education system must be reformed to meet future needs.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, Justice Minister Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa today revealed the details of the controversial individual who was kept anonymous for allegedly taking a bribe to not pursue legal action to obtain compensation from the MV Express Pearl vessel case. The minister emphasized that while he cannot take responsibility for the information, it cannot also be deemed as evidence yet until a police investigation is carried out.
එක්ස්ප්‍රස් පර්ල් නෞකාව අයිති සමාගමට එරෙහිව නීතිමය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගැනීම කඩිනම් කළ යුතුව තිබෙනවා. නඩු කටයුතු යටපත් කරමින් වග උත්තරකාර පාර්ශව වෙත යම් වාසි සහගත තත්ත්වයන් උදා කරනු පිණිස යම් කිසිවෙකු අනිසි ලෙස මෙයට මැදිහත් වීමක් සිදු කර තිබේද.
සිංගප්පූරු අධිකරණයේ නඩු පැවරීමේ කටයුතු ඩෙන්ස්ටන් රොඩික් ඇන් ඩේවිඩ්සන් LLP කියන ඒ ආයතනය මගින් සිදු කිරීමට නියමිතයි. මේ වන විට සියලු කටයුතු අපි සිදු කරමින් තිබෙනවා. එම නඩුව අද දිනේදී සිංගප්පූරු අධිකරණයේ පැවරීමට නියමිතයි. මම අද එළිදරව් කරනවා මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේදී මේක වගකීම මම බාරගන්නේ නැහැ. මේක තොරතුරක්. මේක සාක්ෂියක්ද නැද්ද කියලා මම දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක සාක්ෂියක්ද නැද්ද කියලා තෝරගන්න ඕන, තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන පොලිසිය පරීක්ෂණ කරලා අවසාන නිගමනය දුන්නම. ඒකේ නමක් විදිහට තියෙනවා චාමර ගුණසේකර, නට්වෙස් ෂෝට් කෝඩ් 50000, account number 154793334, IBAN number එකක් තියෙනවා GB 53 NWBK 5.5 BIC NWBK GB 2L $250 million in this account කියලා තමයි මේ තොරතුර මට ලැබුණේ. ඒ පිළිබඳ පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු දැන් සිද්ධ කරගෙන යනවා.
In the meantime, MP of ITAC M.A. Sumantiram accused the Department of Archaeology of being biased and racist.
Now this is an ancient Hindu shrine that was destroyed by thousands of soldiers. We have pictures led by Honorable Vidura Vikramanayaka, who went in there, broke the trident that the Hindus worship, threw it into the shrubs. There's a case pending. When there's a case pending in court, it's a custom, it's a tradition for the state to hold its hand. Department of Archaeology is best understood when one looks at the logo of this department. This is the logo of the Department of Archaeology. What does it have? It has a Dagaba and a Dharma Chakra. Looks like a Ministry of Buddha Sasana. Why does the Department of Archaeology have a logo of one religion? That shows what this department is protecting, what it is determined to destroy. There was another incident. Again, I have to disclose because I appeared as lawyer yesterday in the Vaunia Magistrates Court. in Vadukanarimala. Several Hindu worshipping idols were destroyed. The Department of Archaeology initially tried to prevent worshippers going there. 2 or 3 years ago, they filed several cases. All that was resisted. They couldn't stop the worshippers. So, unidentified persons within court in jeeps wearing shorts went and destroyed.
Oh, Honorable Mahindamarveera.
කරු මූලාසනාරූඪ මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි මෙතුමා දිගින් දිගටම දෙමළ කෝවිල් විනාශ කරනවා ප්‍රතිමා විනාශ කරනවා ඒ ආගමට පහර දෙනවා කියලා මේ චෝදනාවක් එල්ල කරනවා. මෙතන ඇමතුමා නැති නිසායි මම කියන්න කැමති කිසිම අවස්ථාවක මේ රජය එහෙම කටයුතු කරන්න ඉඩ දීලා නැහැ. මේක සම්පූර්ණ අසත්‍යයක්. මේ වගේ දේවල් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේ මේ ලාංඡනය ගැන මෙතුමා කියන්න ගන්නවා ලාංඡනය මේ අද ඊයේ හදපු එකක් නෙමෙයි. මේක මේ අවුරුදු ගණනාවක් තිස්සේ තියෙන දෙයක්.
ඔබතුමා දැන් අපිට පොරොන්දුවක් දෙනවද ඒ ලාංඡනය වෙනස් කරනවා කියලා?
මේක මේ අද ඊයේ හදපු ලාංඡනයක් නෙමෙයි.
ඒක කමන්නේ.
හදපු ලාංඡනයක් නෙමෙයි. ඔබතුමාලා ඒ යෝජනාව ගේන්න ඒ යෝජනාව සාධාරණම් අපිට වෙනස් කරන්න
කාලයකට කලින් හදපු නිසා ඒක හරි වෙන්නේ නැහනේ. මං පෙන්නලා තියෙනවා. දැන් මේක වෙනස් කරනවද? මේක සාධාරණද? ඔබතුමා මේක සාධාරණයි කියලා කියනවද?
අපි ඒ පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා කරන්න. අපිට කිසිම ආකාරයක උමනාවක් නැහැ. කිසිම ජාතියක් හෝ ආගමක් පාගල දාන්න වෙනස් කරන්න අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
Now, the Cabinet today granted approval to a proposal presented by President to carry out the procedures needed to obtain a loan grant of $150 million from the World Bank in order to support Sri Lanka's deposit insurance and liquidity support scheme. In addition, the Cabinet also approved another proposal to have the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance with proceeding with the work required to obtain a special loan grant of $350 million and another loan grant of $1.5 million as technical assistance in order to strengthen the stability and administration of Sri Lanka from the Asian Development Bank. The Cabinet has decided to grant approval to proceed with further activities to obtain a loan grant of $150 million from the World Bank as an investment financing project. Accordingly, discussions have been held with the World Bank with regard to obtaining loan facilities of the bank for Sri Lanka's deposit insurance and liquidity support scheme under Sri Lanka's Financial Sector Security Network project. The proposed loan amount is expected to be used to strengthen the financial and institutional capacity of the Ceylon Financial Safety Network targeting and deposit insurance scheme with the aim of increasing the strength and efficiency of the financial sector. In the meantime, parallel to the comprehensive funding facility approved by the International Monetary Fund, the Asian Development Bank has agreed to provide a special loan facility of $350 million based on policies and another grant of $1.5 million as technical assistance in order to strengthen the stability and administration of Sri Lanka. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal furnished by the President to entrust the responsibility to the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance for processing the further activities on obtaining the relevant loan grant. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the proposal submitted by President Ranil Wickremesinghe to appoint a Cabinet subcommittee comprised of 10 members, chaired by the President with the participation of Prime Minister as well as the Minister of Education, in order to provide the necessary instructions and guidance for furnishing the National Education Policy Framework for the next 25 years and submit all recommendations to the Parliament and implement them accordingly in a priority basis. In the meantime, the Cabinet of Ministers also granted the green light for the proposal presented by the President to prepare the Nuwara Tourism Development Master Plan under the coordination of President's Office with the contribution of all relevant parties to appoint a task force headed by the Governor of the Central Province. This will be done in order to regulate the construction of new buildings and to limit the construction of new buildings of more than 4 stories in the Nuwara district with effect from the 1st of May in accordance with the provisions stipulated by the Urban Development Authority Act No. 2. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that any attempt to disturb the education system of the country, whether directly or indirectly, will not be permitted, and if required, new legislation will be introduced to address such conduct. The President further mentioned that steps will be taken to create an education system suitable for 21st century and to uplift Sri Lanka's name internationally.
3-day educational exhibition and art festival Vidyabhimani commenced at the Matara Rahula College premises this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The event was organised in line with the college centenary celebration ceremony.
මම මෙතනින් ඇතුල් වෙනකොට මං තරුණ ශිෂ්‍යයෙක්ගෙන් ඇහුවා වයස කීයද කියලා. මට අවුරුදු 10යි කිව්වා. දැන් අවුරුදු 10 නම් අවුරුදු 10 තව අවුරුදු කීයක් ජීවත් වෙයිද? අවුරුදු 80ක් ජීවත් වුණා තව අවුරුදු 70ක් තියෙනවා. 20 90. ඉතින් මේ කාලයට සුදුසු මුහුණ දෙන්න පුළුවන් අධ්‍යාපනයක්ද අද තියෙන්නේ? ඒකට පිළිතුර නැහැ. ඉතින් මේ ආණ්ඩුව හැටියට අද වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්නේ එහෙනම් 2035 වෙනකොට හොඳ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයක් ඇති කරන්නටයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. අද අපි මේ ගුරු මණ්ඩලයේ සාමයෙන් ඇහුවොත් ඔබේ අධ්‍යාපනයෙන් 2050 වෙනකන්වත් යන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා පිළිතුර දෙන්න බෑ. අපි ඒ නවීකරණයට යන්න ඕනේ. රටේ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමය වක්‍රව හෝ ඍජුව කඩාකප්පල් කරන්නට බාධා කරන්නට කාටවත් ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉඩ දෙන්න බෑ. වුවමනා නම් ඒකට නීතිත් අපි ගේන්න තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා අධ්‍යාපන ඇමති සුසිල් ප්‍රේමජයන්ත මහත්මයාත් මමත් කතා කළා. අපි ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ අධ්‍යාපනය පිළිබඳ කැබිනට් කොමිටියක් පත් කරා. අපි බැලුවොත් ලෝකේ සාර්ථකම අධ්‍යාපනය දෙන රට ඇමරිකාව. ඇමරිකාවේ O level විභාගයකුත් නැහැ, A level විභාගයකුත් නැහැ. SAT විභාගයෙන් තමයි යන්නේ. ඒකයි පාසලේ වාර්තාව. අපි බලන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගයක් නැතුව හරි ගෙනියන්න. අපි එතෙන්ට යන්න තියෙනවා. ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාව හැම පාසලකම උගන්වන්න ඕනේ. මම බැලුවේ අවුරුදු 10ක් යන විට ගුරුවරු බඳවා ගන්නකොට ඉංග්‍රීසිත් අනිවාර්ය කරන්න. මේ රට ඉදිරියට යනවා නම් AI කරනවා නම් අපිට තියෙන එන්ජිනේරු සංඛ්‍යාව. අද අපි අවුරුද්දකට පිට කරන්නේ 2500යි. අපේ ඉලක්කයක 10000ක් කරන්න. පළවෙනි අදියරේ. අද වෛද්‍යවරුන් පිට කරන්නේ 1500යි. ඒක 5000ක් කරන්න. ඒ නිසා අලුත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල උමනයි. අපි 2048 රටේ නිදහසේ සියවසේදී දියුණු වෙන්න නම් 2070 2080 වෙනකන් ජීවත් වෙන අයට සමාජයට එකතු වෙන්න නම් ඒ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයේ උමනයි.
The Hartal campaign against the proposed anti-terrorism bill was staged in the north and eastern province today, with shops closed, public transport hampered and a low attendance of students reported in many of the schools in these areas. Now, the campaign was organized by several political parties in the north and eastern provinces, including the Tamil National Alliance. A Hartal movement was staged in the north and eastern provinces this morning. It was called by civil society organizations and several political parties led by the Tamil National Alliance. The Hartal was carried out to demand solutions to several issues faced by the people of the two provinces and also in protest over the proposed anti-terrorism bill. Among the demands, the organizers urged the government to seize the proposed anti-terror legislation, stop land acquisitions in the north and east, stop taking over Hindu religious sites and halt setting up of Sinhalese villages in the districts. Accordingly, all shops in the Jaffna, Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu, Mana and Vaunia districts raised black flags in support of the Hartal. As such, the towns were deserted, hampering day-to-day activities. According to our reporters, schools functioned as usual, but the attendance of students were observed to be at very low levels. Meanwhile, public transport was also crippled due to the suspension of inter-provincial private bus services in support of the Hartal movement. However, the SLTV buses continued to operate as usual. In this backdrop, an incident was reported where two people on a motorbike pelted stones on an SLTB bus that was operating from Mullaitivu to Jaffna for not supporting the Hartal movement. The bus was damaged following the incident. However, the Hartal campaign was not carried out in many towns in the Trincomalee district of the eastern province. Now, under the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Minister of Public Security, Derana English, handed over the remaining volumes of the Presidential Commission established to look into the Easter Sunday terror attacks of 2019 to the chairman of the Bishops' Conference, His Excellency Bishop Anthony Harold, this morning. Speaking during a media briefing today, National Director of the Mass Communication, Reverend Father Jude Krishanthas, said today that while they hope all the content of the remaining volumes of the Easter PCOI are included, the Bishops' Conference will issue a statement regarding the matter in the recent future after studying the material given.
Through a special gazette notice issued on the 21st of September 2019, Then President Maithripala Sirisena appointed a 5-member Presidential Commission of Inquiry, chaired by Supreme Court Justice Janak De Silva, to conduct a formal investigation into the Easter Sunday terror attack. For a period of 214 days, the Presidential Commission recorded testimonies from 457 people, members of Parliament, intelligence and security officers, as well as victims, with some testimonies made available to the media, while some were conducted in secret. Then, the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry was handed over to the then former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the 1st of February in 2021. The final report was named as the first volume of the investigation conducted by the Presidential Commission, and it consisted of 472 pages and 215 attachments. The Presidential Commission had handed over 87 other volumes containing evidence notes and documents based on the conclusions and recommendations contained in the final report of the PCUI was handed over to the former president. Some of the volumes included in the relevant 87 volumes were brought to the President's special attention by the Commission, stating that they contain sensitive matters regarding the country's national security. Then, on the advice of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the 88 volumes related to the full investigation of the Presidential Commission were given to the Attorney General for further legal proceedings. However, the Catholic Church requested on multiple occasions to be provided with all the volumes in order for them to study. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit had requested President Ranil Wickremesinghe to provide them with all the volumes, including the ones kept at the Presidential Secretariat to the Archdiocese of Colombo. Under the approval of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, all the volumes of the Presidential Commission which investigated the Easter attack have been handed over by the Minister of Public Security Tiran Alas to the President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Sri Lanka, His Excellency Bishop Harold Anthony, this morning.
කතෝලික රදගුරු සම්මේලනයේ සභාපති කුරුණෑගල රදගුරු අතිඋතුම් හැරල් ඇන්තනි හිමිපාණන් ප්‍රකාශ කළේ ඉතිරි වෙළුම්වල අන්තර්ගතයේ අඩංගු CD 36ක් උන්වහන්සේ වෙත ටිරාන් අලස් මහත්මයා බහර දුන් බව මේ අවස්ථාව වන විට රදගුරු සම්මේලනයේ රැස්වීම පැවැත්වෙනවා නුවර. ඉතින් උන්වහන්සේලා මේ පිළිබඳව වැඩිදුර අධ්‍යයනයක යෙදিলা නොබෝ දිනකින්ම මේ පිළිබඳව විශේෂ ප්‍රකාශයක් කරන්නට සැලසුම් කරගෙන ඉන්නවා. අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඒ වෙළුම්වල අන්තර්ගත සියල්ල ඒ ආකාරයෙන්ම ඒ CD 30 වල අඩංගු වෙයි කියලා. අපිට පුංචි කොළේලියක් ලබා දුන්නා. මේ රජය සිදු කළා වූ ඒ පියවරට අපි ස්තුතිවන්ත වන අතර අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා රජයෙන් කඩිනමින් විනිවිද භාවයෙන් යුතුව කඩිනම් අධීක්ෂණ කටයුතු මේ පාස්කු විරුද්ධ බෝම්බ ප්‍රහාරය සම්බන්ධව සිදු වෙයි කියන දේ බලාපොරොත්තු තමයි අපි තුලත් තියෙන්නේ.
The Sri Lanka's Department of Meteorology today issued a warning that there is no threat of a tsunami to Sri Lanka after quake struck west of Indonesia's Sumatra Island. A tsunami warning was triggered in Indonesia early today after West Sumatra was rattled by a magnitude 7.3 earthquake and several aftershocks. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck west of Indonesia's Sumatra Island earlier today, triggering a tsunami warning for about 2 hours. The tsunami warning, asking local authorities to immediately instruct residents of the affected area to move away from shores, has since been lifted. The quake, at a depth of 84 kilometers, hit about 3 a.m. in local time. According to Indonesia's Geophysics Agency, a number of aftershocks were detected later, with one registered as strong at 5.8 magnitude on the Richter scale. The agency stated that the shocks were felt in districts and cities of West Sumatra and North Sumatra provinces. Meanwhile, in Padang, the capital of West Sumatra, the earthquake was strongly felt for about 30 seconds. Local news footage showed some residents evacuating by motorbike and foot to higher ground. Meanwhile, the Indonesian authorities urged caution as residents returned gradually to their homes later today. There were no reports of casualties from the tremors. Indonesia experiences frequent earthquakes because it straddles the Pacific Ring of Fire, a seismically active zone where different plates of the Earth's crust meets. Meanwhile, the Department of Meteorology in Sri Lanka showed that there is no tsunami threat to the country at present, with the effect of the earthquake, and declared the coastal areas of Sri Lanka as safe. And we'll be back with more news right after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. මේ අලුත් අවුරුද්දේ හිත පිරෙන ගනුදෙනුවකට හොඳම තැන හිත ගිය තැන බැංකුව HNB.
අසම සම සන්නාමයක ශක්තිමත් බව ෆිච් ඒ මූල්‍ය වර්ගීකරණය හිමිකරගත් එකම රක්ෂණ ආයතනය. පස්වන වරටත් ග්‍රෑන්ඩ් ෆයිනන්ස්හි වැඩිම වටිනාකමකින් යුත් සාමාන්‍ය රක්ෂණ සන්නාමය සහ ඉහළම ජනාදරයට පත් වූ රක්ෂණ සන්නාමය ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
Welcome back. Now, the Federation of University Teachers Association has decided to make a final decision pertaining to the marking of the 2022 GCE Advanced Level Examination answer sheets following a discussion with the President. This decision was made by the university lecturers at a special discussion held this evening by the Federation of University Teachers Association in order to arrive at a final decision on engaging in the A-level answer script evaluation process. Accordingly, it was decided to make a final decision pertaining to the paper marking of the GCE Advanced Level Examination following a discussion with the President. Now, the Colombo Additional Magistrate Rajendra Jayasuri yesterday ordered a DNA report of Dinesh Shafter's business friend and cricket commentator Brian Thomas to be obtained as well. The order was issued by the magistrate based on the recommendations of the 5-member medical committee appointed to determine whether Shafter's death is a murder or suicide.
The case regarding the death of the director of the Janashakti Group, Dinesh Shafter, was called yesterday before the additional magistrate of the Colombo Magistrate Court, Rajendra Jayasuriya. Accordingly, with the disclosure to the court that there are 2 other foreign biological samples in the DNA reports called in relation to the death of Dinesh Shafter, the Colombo Additional Magistrate yesterday ordered a DNA report of Shafter's business friend, cricket commentator Brian Thomas, to be obtained as well. This order was issued by the magistrate based on the recommendations of a 5-member medical committee appointed to determine whether Shafter's death is a murder or suicide. 2 medical specialists from the committee who appeared before the court requested the court to issue the relevant order as it was relevant in relation to the investigations on Shafter's mobile phone recordings and WhatsApp messages. The government analyst had reported to the court that the water bottle used by Shafter, the cable wire and the wire tied around his hands had 2 foreign biological samples.
The Sri Lankan shares closed lower for a 7th consecutive session today, dragged by losses in the consumer staples and industrial companies. The CSA All Share Price Index fell by 0.67% to close at 9,125.32 points. The index has shed 3.1% in the past 7 sessions. On the day, Ceylon Tobacco PLC and Malvatta Valley Plantations PLC were the top decliners on the benchmark index, falling 3.1% and 10.6% respectively. Meanwhile, the overall trading volume rose to 61.3 million shares from 51.2 million in the previous session. The equity turnover rose to 1.14 billion rupees from 678.7 million rupees in the previous session. In the meantime, foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 293 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 1.9 billion rupees. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against the other major currencies during the day. Now, oil prices edged high today on track for a 3rd day of gains, supported by investor optimism that holiday travel in China would boost fuel demand and by expectations US inventories would show a drop in crude stocks.
Bookings in China for trips abroad during the upcoming May Day holiday point to a continued recovery in travel to Asian countries. Meanwhile, US crude inventories are expected to fall by 1.7 million barrels in weekly supply reports. Brent crude rose by 10 cents to settle at $82.83 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude gained 15 cents to end at $78.91. Both contracts rose over 1% yesterday. Involuntary and planned supply cuts meanwhile lent support to the markets. Iraq's northern oil exports have shown few concrete signs of an imminent restart after a month of standstill, and members of the OPEC Plus producer group are starting a voluntary cut in May. However, investors still remain wary about central banks in the United States, Britain, and the European Union potentially raising interest rates further to curb inflation, which could slow economic growth and dent energy demand. Meanwhile, today, traders are awaiting data from the American Petroleum Institute on US stockpiles.
And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Tune into our social media pages for the very latest updates. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.